Hello, everybody, and welcome to ChessDiagnostic. Today, we're going to look at the game that was just played in the World Championship Rapid Tiebreaks. We're finally getting some action. This is game two, and actually, I was rather shocked watching this game because Caruana basically violates the three main things that you need to do in an opening, and he doesn't castle his king, and he suffers a rather rapid loss in the rapid tiebreaks. All right, so we're going to start off the game as from the black side as Carlsen, and we'll just see how Carlsen follows the basic strategic principles, and from that, he just wins after a tactical mistake. So after e4, c5, knight f3, we get basically the Sveshnikov variation that Caruana has been obsessed with, apparently. After e5, these standard moves, knight takes, and then pawn takes. And there's really nothing wrong with this variation, but it looks really weird from a strategic point of view as white, because let's see what happens. So c4, Carlsen just follows standard moves, but Caruana seems to just want to develop his queen and make a bunch of pawn moves. He moves his queen two times, threatening this d6 pawn, but after queen to b8, protecting it, there's really nothing white can do. And after h4, h5, preventing that pawn thrust, chasing the knight back. You see that white, if we just analyze this position from a generalized perspective, white has developed none of his minor pieces or his rooks. He's made two moves with his queen, a lot of moves with pawns, and he doesn't really have any threats. So after the bishop develops, Carlsen just follows the idea of chasing back all of white's pieces that are on his territory. Starting with a6, the knight goes back, and then a5 and a4. So this position is even more of a strategic issue for white because now he has no developed pieces. He's been chased back, and he has some weaknesses now. Carlsen just developed his bishop, preparing to castle and also threatening the h4 pawn. And now queen to c8, preparing to protect this h4 pawn, as well as trade off the light square bishop, which is the protector of all these weaknesses now in white's camp. So we see the trade-off here, and then Carlsen develops his queen, and after this c5 push, which it makes some sense, but actually this is where Caruana starts to violate the idea of basically developing your minor pieces, castling, and then connecting your rooks and getting all your pieces in play. And so just from this simple strategic mistake, Carlsen's able to win. Carlsen follows all the strategic ideas, and he is completely developed, and he's ready for the game. So it looks like Caruana is going to get a pass pawn, but actually Carlsen has evaluated it as not as important as the central development of his pieces. So he's going to prevent as much as he can this pawn, and with correct play it should be equal, but we'll see how it's rather tempting for white to make a bunch of mistakes here. All right, so after the knight comes in, we see the sudden move e4, basically a bunch of sinister threats with this knight, and even if white castles, he's going to start to have some problems because he has these weak light squares with no defender, and once this knight comes in, it's a very powerful knight on the third rank, and there's really nothing that white can do about it. So Caruana is tempted with c7, a sudden tactical mistake that leads to a loss after takes, knight takes, bringing the knight in, and then after knight here and here, basically the game's over. Caruana shockingly resigned. In 28 moves, we see basically the end of the World Chess Championship. I know there's probably one more game or two more games, but I don't think Caruana is going to be able to pull through. So instead of c7, white should have played, let's see, b4 here is what the computer is recommending. And after these following moves, This is very complicated, of course. Even grandmasters would have trouble playing this in a rapid. The knight comes back. We see finally white is able to castle, but he does have to give up eventually that pawn with these moves. And at the end of this computer line, we see that it's an equal game totally. Black has equalized, won that pawn, and white will be okay. That would be a draw. But again, getting there would have been very difficult because basically white has to realize he's going to give up this very powerful passed pawn. And psychologically, when you have this kind of situation and you have almost a must-win game, that would be very hard to do. But if he kept pressing, and that's really Carlsen's genius, is he follows just simple, logical, strategic moves, and his opponents press tactically, and Carlsen's so good tactically that he'll just outplay and win in the end. So it's a combination of this strategic understanding as well as tactical ability that allows him to win these kind of games. So a very interesting game. Finally, some rather sharp play and some tactical mistakes. That's what we want to see. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this game, and it's a shame that the world champion won't be American, but at least he tried. I think the strategy of trying to just play too safe backfired because Caruana doesn't really have a chance, it seems, in the rapid against Carlsen. Carlsen's just too strong in faster time controls. All right, so I'm going to be resuming daily videos. I'm going to try to stick to that. Of course, I said that in the past, and then shit happens. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future. Bye-bye.